Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar, to this expert colloquium organized by OdiseIA, the Observatory on the Societal and Ethical Impact of Artificial Intelligence. We are a think and do tank based in Madrid, Spain, and we have different experts that you know everything about. And you have on the facade, you have a presentation of each one of them and their LinkedIn accounts, so you can access and you can know who they are. And we have six experts now, and they're going to join in a colloquium on certain questions regarding a study conducted within the UNESCO Civil Society, the CSO Academic Network on AI Global Ethics. And this group is about IP and culture. IP and culture, that is correct. And thank you, everybody. Just say hello, and we'll shoot up with the first question so we can proceed with your colloquium. Okay. All right.
Hello.
So here's the first question for all of you, and this is a 13-minute intervention for all of you all together. Okay. So feel free not to walk into each other's path, and feel free to share, of course. And the public is watching right now. It is important that that you as experts educate on the subject. The first question is basically, what are the impacts of the dominant AI innovation paradigm on cultural rights and development? Who wants to start? Go ahead.
I can start.
Yeah, go ahead, Javier. Thank you.
So, thank you. Thank you for the invitation and hello, everyone. In my view, one of the biggest impacts of this change that IA has brought to our cultures is the dramatical reduce of diversity. So, um, in relation to art, I'm talking about not mainly focus on the area of art. So in a sense, all the nurturing from the society comes from nowadays comes from the images that we see on based on social platforms, and as IA platforms are nurtured by let's say democratical database, which is ourselves feeding it. The result in a cultural sense is the reduction, the progressive reduction of the ideas that come from this platform. So in this sense, it seems to me that it represents a high risk for the future of for example, conservation of small cultures, vernacular or small cultures that are outside the mainstream. So that would be, in my opinion, one of the big impacts we're having today.
I
Yes,
can
indeed.
follow up from Javier's. I would like to start saying that artificial intelligence development is concentrated, and it's basically concentrated in the United States and few of its companies. China, which ranks second, lags far behind. This reality shapes the technology, the artificial intelligence technology, that is the one that is promising to transform human society substantially. Until this does not change, it will be difficult to speak of sovereignty or and the dependence will persist. And I think one of the consequences is precisely what Javier just mentioned. Diversity, of course, is a huge impact because it's a concentrated environment. This is why my main point in regarding the first question, is that today the prevailing paradigm is based on the reality, on that reality, that the concentration, and therefore the interests that it follows are primarily corporate or geopolitical or of geopolitical dominance. I believe that there are other approaches that will respond better, even with what Javier was just saying, to a development, but if we consider other key issues such as collective approach, co-creation, openness, public access, if those kind of values take the center stage, it could reshape an alternative way of developing and using artificial intelligence, and even probably we will not be subject to just one paradigm. However, this is a huge challenge. And unless we are able to raise the profile of other ways of addressing artificial intelligence, we might never be able to change this unique paradigm as it kind of is seen today. I will leave it there to hear others.
Thanks, Carolina. Thanks, Javier. I totally agree, of course. I think that this paradigm that you were referring, I think that it's creating a technological asymmetry between global north and the global south. Because, as you said, most energy AI systems are developed in the United States or China, so they are trained on cultural material for all over the world, including works in Latin America, in Africa, and South Asia. So this situation raises three main issues, I think. First, in my opinion, I think that it's maybe the most important issue is cultural data extraction. Because cultural works from many societies are used to train AI models without clear consent, clear recognition, or participation from these communities. No, this is this has a strong relationship with the issue of discrimination, or maybe the invisibility of this diversity, no? Because there is a lack of compensation. There is a lot of content. It's widely used in training data sets, cultural and creative industries, not only in Spain, of course, in Latin America, rarely participate in the economic value generated by these technologies because they are companies, that Carolina was saying, no? And third, it's the technological dependency, because it's a problem of the sovereignty of these countries. Many countries contribute cultural data, but do not participate in the development of the technological infrastructures. So I think that it creates a significant challenge for cultural rights. We saw in Mondial, we saw it last month in New Delhi, because cultural heritage becomes a resource for these technological systems. No, I think that it's a very controversial and very difficult situations to view a clear solution for this, because the wrong way it's done already. So we have to move on and look for a solution that integrates these cultural narratives that are outside the process right now. No?
Alberto, if I may, I think I can actually contribute to the picture that you are portraying, adding another layer of complexity, which is the expansion of these dynamics beyond the specific cultural content into the biological realm, which is something that we are seeing a lot. Actually, we just published a small paper with ETC that's called Large Looting Models, trying to explain exactly how this new wave of bioprospecting and biopiracy is being fed by the AI boom. And this, for everyone, it's something that we should look a lot more, and it's clearly intersecting with what has to do with cultural rights, which is the convergence between artificial intelligence and biotechnology, no? And creating these new industrial infrastructures where biological resources are collected, sequenced, and digitized to feed AI training pipelines, which is something that we had never seen before in the dimension that is starting to happen. This growing demand for biological data is already driving many scenarios of bioprospecting in biodiverse regions, particularly with indigenous peoples. And biological resources, of course, are associated with knowledge that's digitized and incorporated into then proprietary AI systems, often without meaningful participation or benefit sharing of any kind. And that connects also with what Carolina was describing, Like we have this public cultural realm that is definitely fed into a pipeline of private property rights that hold the property on the infrastructures that support these systems. So these, of course, these developments raise concerns for not just in the perspective of the property, but also for livelihoods and biocultural rights, because sometimes this AI-enabled biological design can lead to the creation also of synthetic substitutes for natural products, and that's something that I think it's a good picture of what can be like the final scenario that can potentially disrupt the livelihoods of small-scale producers and indigenous peoples with crops, for example, or medicines that were originally gave rise to those compounds. So taken together, these dynamics suggest that the dominant AI innovation paradigm is reshaping a lot, not only the technological infrastructures, but also the ways in which knowledge and biodiversity and cultural resources are being appropriated and valorized in this new global economy. So to add another layer of what we're discussing.
Yeah, I'll be quick, very quickly. Happy to be here. Hi, everyone. So basically, I am 100% agree with Alberto, Soledad, all of you, because the most important here when we are talking about, let me say, AI or artificial intelligence and how it's possible to provide the best response. The core here is basically all the AI need data. And also Alberto is mentioning, we need to train the model, performance the model, and improve that model. But what happened with let me say, with this right? The most from my experience, the most important example about this is Wikipedia. It's a volunteer over 20 years ago. It's building and provide any solution, any example of information, but the volunteer get nothing, honestly. So around all this knowledge is become a product or become a community. We are seeing this one. So basically, in my parties, we need to looking for around that match between the AI technology and the right property. So basically, very quick.
I wanted maybe to add something to what I said before in relation to, again, art, because there's like an interesting scenery in relation to the art market as we approach to the IA. So what happens is that the global art market, which is like the big market related to culture, is growing year by year. So this year we had probably one of the best growth rates from the last years, but at the same time, the internet, the online selling, the online market, art market is going down, and this year has been the lowest amount of selling since 2019, so since the pandemic. So what this means, this is an article published in what was that, in Art Basel, something like that. So what demonstrates this is that there is like a bit we have a two ways runway in which there's like a fast or high valuable elite market, which is in all the big fairs in the world, and then there is like a massive art market, which is shrinking year by year because it suffers from different tensions. One of them is that it's more difficult to create an original product when what you see is a combination of what you've seen. I mean, if you're buying online, it's really difficult to find new stimuli to new things that are worth your money to buy in a market which values overall the idea of exclusiveness. So what happens at the same time is that the people who are, for instance, in a small village in Bolivia, let's say, making beautiful artworks, try to sell them by putting them into usually open platforms where the IA reaches and takes these images and includes them in the flow of the global art market. So these images are then capitalized or are transformed into money or richness, wealth in the global market, but the original, the people who created them sees nothing at all about that. So in a sense, this new AI scenery is creating at the same time there is like a big decolonial flow in the world, in the art world. It's creating at the same time a huge colonial movement on the basis of this art market. So people who sell low prices are becoming sucked with their. I mean, the production is sucked and then sold by versions in other big markets. So I think this is quite concerning in a way.
Very well. Thank you for your participation on this first question, and for those actually being right now watching us from out there. Please, you can locate your questions there that our experts will be answering. We will try to get as many questions in as we can. For all of you, the next question is and reads basically: Are existing IP regimes adequate to redirect AI development pathways towards local needs and local control of the knowledge infrastructures of tomorrow? It is a good
Difficult.
question, though.
Yeah, this is a good one. Soledad, please.
Okay, so like in our view for Itissimo, what we see that much of the current debate about AI governance focuses on intellectual property, no? And particularly on copyright and the legality of using cultural works as training data. But this framing does not carefully capture the governance challenges that are emerging with some of the applications of AI, no? And generative AI, for example, with this that I was explaining before, the AI and biology convergence. For example, the emerging generative biology sector depends on the creation of really enormous, vast data supply chains that transform biological materials like genes, proteins, and biodiversity in general into digital training datasets for AI systems. And in this context, the central governance issue is not simply ownership or individual works or datasets, but control over the infrastructures through which biological and cultural resources are collected, digitized, and incorporated to AI models. So in that case, intellectual property regimes were designed to govern identifiable inventions or creative works. And these frameworks are not well equipped to address situations in which living systems or biodiversity and community knowledge are converted into digital sequence information and fed into large AI models. So once these resources are digitized and incorporated into training pipelines like this, they become extremely difficult to trace or to attribute and much less to govern. So this creates a serious challenge for existing frameworks around access and benefit sharing and consent and community rights, which have been like the frameworks we have been fighting for years, no? That like this puts in question everything that used to be a usable tool, no, to defend collective rights. So, and I would say that something similar in terms of the governance gaps appears, for example, for agricultural data systems, where there's a lot of collective knowledge embedded, no? So it's very difficult to connect the production of the data set, no, or the original data points to the pipeline of what's being produced, by the AI model. So this development suggests that the governance challenges go well beyond intellectual property, and it concerns how data supply chains are organized and who controls the infrastructures that collect and process all the biological and cultural data, and how collective rights and concerns can be meaningfully upheld when those resources are incorporated into AI systems.
Totally agree, of course. I think that we have a lack of information about the real impact, no?
Mhm.
And it's a problem of data governance indeed, because we have to trace this data and to trace its use, and we cannot do it. And we cannot do it because we don't have enough tools. In Europe, for example, we have the AI Act and we have the Copyright Directive. The Copyright Directive has an exception, the famous TLM exception of text and data mining, but we cannot identify the same use of that text and data mining when we were talking about the AI training, the AI data sets, no? So it's not exactly the same. So we have a lack of normative there, and we have a lack of sovereignty, because of course the real impact is done from USA. So we have a lack of independence in our own power to create regulation and to create normative in this case. For example, we have of course Brazil. I think that it's a country that it's having a lot of innovative decisions to make a new real scenario in this country. For example, the group of entities that it's around Chile to create this lobby indeed, and of course the um, the decision of Colombia, for example, to create this sandbox of AI. Of course, Carolina knows much about this. So I think that we can do uh, um, we can do a reflection about the path that we want to follow, because there is an interdependence of the use of AI, but the real impact in the creative of the authors of the creators and regulation of intellectual property, of also of rights of authors and these things. But it's a matter of of expression. It's a matter of cultural rights. It's more complex. No, we don't have enough normative and a specific normative to defend this case, and we have to do it, of course.
I am not sure that the situation is a lack of normative. Probably it's how we want to apply normatives, and that's another discussion. But
Yeah.
to stay into the question, I would agree that I don't think that intellectual property is the right approach to govern artificial intelligence, not just because of what Soledad says, which I would like to add to it, that in most copyright laws, data is not protected under copyright. Moreover, in European Union, they had to come up with how do you call it? It was a special kind of protection. I can't remember right now the exact word for data. And it's been developing for a few years now. But that doesn't solve the problem. It is because the way that intellectual property is designed is, as Soledad said, for individual and for basically books. Everything on top of it has been added through years of kind of a collage regulation, which is hard to undo and it's hard to apply today to something such as artificial intelligence. But on top of that, if you look into the maps of regulation of intellectual property are those countries that were in the speed of using data for science, that were able to create exceptions for data uh, research, such as the one you mentioned, Alberto, in the EU. But none of our countries, not even Brazil, we don't have. Moreover, today Brazil considers that incorporating an exception for data mining, even for researchers, is a way of opening the data to exploitation by big corporation, which I believe is not the way to address it. In my opinion, and there is an interesting article by, wait a moment, Mariela Montaña. She says why copyright is not the right policy tool to deal with generative AI. And also because probably one of the most contested artificial intelligence is the generative one, the one that creates the most problem, right? So no, for me, IP is not the applicable. And I think oftentimes when we concentrate our efforts in thinking on IP, we forget that there are other legal systems, such as competition law or even labor, all the problems with labor that should be taken into account. And I'm not going to refer to science and all what Soledad has mentioned, because also it's different animals, science and culture and art is different, and the interests that actors in each sector follow are very different. But to focus on the issues of culture, the impact are different and should be also dealt with. The problem, I think, or part of it, is that intellectual property used to redirect incentives on artificial intelligence while have, I mean, if we use intellectual property, let me reframe. If we use intellectual property to redirect the incentives of artificial intelligence, there will be side effects that will impact negatively the development and use of artificial intelligence in our countries of the global south. Because remember, as I said, the paradigm everybody is fighting for is that of the artificial intelligence produced by basically one country, which is the United States and its companies, and everything is looked through those lenses. And as already was mentioned by Gabriel, there are other paradigms. I did not mention examples, but he did mention Wikipedia. And if we apply what we believe should be done with the big corporations through the lens of intellectual property, we will kill Wikipedia or many other examples of another paradigm. So when regulatory proposals are focused on the effects of data exploitation by large corporations, they will fail to recognize that those same laws will apply to everyone. And this will impact local developers, local creators, and heritage sector, especially because, as I said, we are using a legal system that was organized and designed for another thing to deal with a reality that is based on data. And again, look into the laws of any of your countries, especially in the global south. Data is not protected by copyright, precisely because of the problems people already looked into it. It was only database, original database. And if you put a scientist and a lawyer to discuss what an original database is, you will see how each of them has a different way of addressing those. So the logics of intellectual property does not apply to the way artificial intelligence work. It shouldn't be used.
If I may continue with your what you said, Carolina, I completely agree. But I would indeed propose you one question, which is, does it make any sense at this point to discuss or to think about ways of understanding the intellectual property after these massive motors of taking data have mapped the whole internet and have billions and billions or trillions of tokens of information within them. I mean, is there anything else not already into those open databases accessible to IA platforms? And I would propose this question, and also I would ask if, I mean, in case we wanted to make a difference between what is the authorship, which is we should also find like common grounds. For example, in United States, the intellectual property has to do with economics, and in Europe it has to do with moral. So how could we like reach to common points in a moment in history in which everything is already within these databases? Wouldn't it be maybe our biggest problem to get those databases and open them to the global community, maybe? Because is there anything else to? I mean, I don't know who I was listening the other day to a podcast from someone, and he was saying something like the knowledge acquired by these platforms, this data, these massive motors, are now like have contain the whole knowledge that we've created until now. So basically, what we're going to produce is combination from these, I mean, data that we can access to. Of course, you have those private and closed databases where you don't reach, but I don't know if it makes any sense to try now. I mean, if I think about painting, for example, or art, the whole what I my in my view, the problem is that they began mapping everything when AI was created. They started mapping like retrieving all the information they could. So, and then when we created the laws to defend authorship, there's always like this small sentence which is beautiful that says legitimate interest. That is the way to take all the data that you need in case. I mean, there's always like it works like an excuse to keep on retrieving data. So, what are we going to get now by trying to stop that? Is there any sense? Maybe the future is to also use those data instead of trying to control how we deliver them or what we do with them.
Just to finish, for my point of view, I agree with Carolina and also with Jarrell, all of you. So basically, are exciting. The first question is regarding the question is exciting AP regimen. Honestly, my point of view, in short, is the answer is not. But that this is normal because when this current AP framework were not designing for this moment when it is created. So basically, we need to thinking about this one and improve because the copyright and fair use in work is not compatibility with this the real moment, because now we don't have sufficient data to train the new model, something like that. We are using the AI as well to train and create more data or more data sets. But the problem here is, okay, what is the real owner behind the scene that this new data? So for my point of view, in this case, it's more interesting, because we have double problem, maybe. Okay, the EPs doesn't protect the creator well enough. That is honestly, this is the first one. But the another is at the same time, it's what happened with the new data was created using the AI for different source to improve the system. So that is my point of view regarding the AP, honestly, because now we are using that we are creating artificial data to provide and train it. But that data are from or come from to the another artificial system. That is a very, very line we need to maybe improve, because at the moment, for my point of view, because I am for more technical, when in my team when we need to design new, let me say, new solution based on artificial intelligence, only or companies, something like that, only keep in mind is how it's possible to protect my own data. But what happened with another data or another, let me say, free data or open data that you need to improve your internal system? So that is very tricky to take and improve the AP only in the creative. I know a different project they don't use, or when they need to ramp up a new campaign, release a new campaign, preview, they are using AI to testing if this campaign is good or not. It depends on the reaction, release the real campaign. Imagine in the new product of like a new dress.
Very well. Very well, yes. Thank you, Gabriel. We're going to go towards the last question so we can allow questions from the public, if there are any. If not, we will have another fourth question, which is within the document you all received. In this specific case, our question is basically, how can we build an AI commons that fosters a flourishing public domain?
I would like to start there because there are two things I want to say. So the first one, just to finish on the on the one before, but to continue with the discussion with Alberto, is not that I don't think we need new laws, but I'm not sure we're ready to do them, which is a terrible dilemma because artificial intelligence is not going to wait for us to be ready. So just to say that also. But then on the last question, I don't think there is a simple solution or response to it. There are interesting proposals that are already suggesting that protecting the commons in the context of artificial intelligence is not really a matter of a purely legal restriction, but instead they are talking about new forms of data governance that are relying on the technology or on the technical approach. Many of these proposals, for instance, tend to look towards the technical infrastructure solutions. For instance, by exploring measures that do not hinder the collaboration among individuals, but that limit at the infrastructure level the openness of large scale data scrapping, or they issue, or for instance, they restrict automated bots, or even they work on designing APIs that provide controlled access to specific actors. For instance, researchers, because we do want researchers to have the same capacity that they do in other developed countries, let's say. The central challenge here, I think, is to identify mechanisms that can protect cultural heritage ecosystems, and I will refer specifically to cultural heritage, understanding again that interests are different if you are a creator, if you are a developer. So let me restrict to the issues of cultural heritage, because what we are seeing is that what we need is to understand better. Well, probably this will work for any of the different actors, but we need to understand better what are the pains, what are the problems, what people really face vis-a-vis the artificial intelligence. Of course, I think the main one, it has already been mentioned, which is the extraction of illegitimate value, right? That is something that most people really feel in heart, and we need to address it. Then probably, why do I say this? Because now staying into the realm of the cultural heritage, for instance, if we only go through legal measures, and the main solution will be to close. And we've been over 10 years opening cultural heritage precisely to flourish public domain. And to go against that now and change licenses and everything will enclose in a very difficult way our heritage, our patrimonio, I would say in Spanish, right? So it will lead to significant problems. I think that a way to discuss this is has needs to go beyond the law, because also if we address the point of infrastructure, then we will have another difficult problem, which is investment. Most of the solutions that go in this line I'm telling you are in Europe. There's been a recent paper of Open Future and Europeana, which is the big repository of public domain in Europe, that addresses this in this way. But interesting point is they do mention the need to invest in infrastructure, and one of the main problems in our countries will be investment. This kind of cultural heritage institutions lack of important resources to invest, and we might have problems there. So I'm not just saying there's solutions, but there are very, very important challenges, even if we identify the solutions we would like to move forward with.
Sorry, if I may continue what you said, I find that there's also some we can take some actions in other senses, but I found very interesting what you said about control access. Indeed, when I think about the heritage in Spain, for instance, like if we look at architecture and we see buildings, there's like indeed you need to create infrastructures and invest and create like a network that works to preserve the past. I think this, more or less the same strategy can be used to improve the use of AI in development countries by, for instance, opening the access, like a controlled opening of access to certain databases, which might be, for instance, developed under the European structure or whatever. But I mean, we're talking about the use of data under LLM or motor IA platform motors, like software, I don't know how you call it. But so one of the main, I mean, the main problem that you have when you start is that you need to train the motor. So in order to improve to foster a flourishing public domain of the use of IA, I think we could, for instance, push the idea of creating local data storages from local cultures, improve the use of database, open databases in which the access is controlled so that it can be like extracted from the market. And I mean, this, if we start to control the flow of information, we can really I don't know, we can really preserve the cultural use or extend it to everyone in a very easy way sometimes. So basically, sharing the biggest databases is the main, it's like the gas to create millions of these things. So I might see one of the paths on there.
If you excuse me, we are at the 3/4 of the hour right now, as we don't have yet questions from the general public. Just please continue and go ahead with the other three experts. Thank you.
Do you want to speak, Alberto?
I wait.
No, I wanted to say that I agree with the previous speakers, and I just wanted to connect with some of the spaces where some of these frameworks might be also materialized. No, like I focus, of course, much more on everything that has to do with biodiversity and biocultural rights, and there's a really interesting dialogue happening right now between those who come from the perspective of intellectual property that has to do with totally different areas, and the discussion of how we deal with data that's connecting with other frameworks that have been discussing access and benefit sharing from a very different point of view. And somehow this is becoming a dialogue that, at least in terms of strategic planning of what we do, is very useful, at least to understand where these tools sit. No, so I definitely understand that stewardship may offer a much more useful framework than ownership. No, when we speak about this, in terms of emphasizing more the responsibilities in the care and the governance of the shared resources and knowledge, rather than simply assessing exclusive rights over something. No, so this is something that's very much in the realm of what we expect to happen when we talk, for example, about biocultural rights. And I just wanted to shed some light on a couple of processes that are being discussed now, no, in at least in the UN scenario, that could be some entry points for advancing this perspective. And one of the examples is what's happening under the Convention of Biological Diversity, that has already recognized, no, the increasingly recognized that the digital sequence information should fall within the access and benefit sharing frameworks, which is it's quite a big gain, no, in terms of how the discussion was being developed. And the creation of the Kali Fund, which explicitly identifies artificial intelligence and software companies as potential commercial users of biodiversity data, represent an important precedent for addressing the use of biodata in emerging AI systems. So that's like an important thread of discussion where all of this comes to be applied concretely. And there's a similar process under the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, which are grappling with how digital sequence information may affect, for example, farmers' rights, particularly when genetic information is derived from seeds that are cultural heritage, no, and incorporated into proprietary technological systems. So across these arenas, the principle of free, prior, and informed consent can become very critical. So if community knowledge, biodiversity data, and ecological information are incorporated into artificial intelligence systems, those communities must retain some meaningful rights to participate in decisions about how resources are used and how benefits are shared. And these two very concrete processes are showing how it's somehow possible to advance some of these frameworks concretely. So I just wanted to share that so that we can also see how this conversation trespasses different discussions and realms of how there's different possibilities of advancing, no, a perspective of a different approach to the stewardship of data.
Thank you, Soledad. I think that it's very interesting to know about new perspective, no? To see that problem, to see some of the possible solutions, no, for that and global environment of this mess that is world right now, no? For me, and I said before that it is a lack of regulation. I think that Carolina was very touchy in the point that she said that there is not a lack of regulation. There is too much regulation, and there is an information and disinformation of this regulation. Maybe this is one of the keys to resolve this problem. No, it's true. Building For example, an AI commons requires a combination of regulation, public policy, and technological infrastructure that ensures, of course, that AI development in a real benefits society as a whole, no? Greater transparency in AI training data sets, it's essential, and developers should be required to disclose the sources of the data used to train their models. Because without transparency, it's impossible to trace for creators, institutional communities to know whether the cultural works, scientific works, academic works have been used and under what conditions. No? Of course, I think that we have to improve, and we need fair remuneration mechanism for creators and cultural sector. Of course, it's not cultural; it's academic, it's scientific, it's global. It's a global issue. Who works contribute to the training of AI systems, because we know that existing mechanisms in copyright law, such as private copy and compensation schemes, who inspires new models that ensures creators, for example, participates in the economic value generated by AI. No, of course we have the other problems that our partner Gabriel was saying about the that we call it the data created by AI to train AI. So there's like a new circle of issues, no? But there a major challenge for many countries, I think particularly in Latin America, it's the lack of technological infrastructure. Of course, Carolina was right in this, because I think which leads it to a growing loss of digital and cultural sovereignty. Many societies contribute to cultural data to global AI systems, but they don't control the computational infrastructures, the platforms or models. No, this challenge requires investment, of course, in public and regional AI infrastructures, including computing capacity, open data sets, and collaborative research networks, for example. Supporting these kind of initiatives, such as open or regional language models that Soledad was saying, can help ensure that local cultures, languages, and knowledge, it's academic issue too. These knowledge systems are properly representing in AI development if we can improve in this direction. But it's so difficult right now because it's inclusive governance, it's data governance, and of course we don't have this data governance if the data is from USA right now. So we have to improve the consideration of these AI commons, no? Maybe by a UN, maybe by UNESCO, maybe this OECD, for example, maybe these entities have the power and the impact to promote this change. I think that it's very important to think about that.
Yes, Soledad and Gabriel, we have 3 minutes each. Thank you.
Yeah, no, very quickly. All right. So basically, I think, honestly, from my point of view, is basically we need to first maybe share infrastructure, like all around to the data. So maybe we can build or share a public data set that are current, multilingual, multicultural, diverse, not just in English or centric, you have common. The second, and for my point of view, is most important, and also is what happened. So the second is governance rules. Build new governance rule about it. Who can access the data? Okay, for what purpose you are accessing that data, and under what condition. And the three is reciprocity, I think. Reciprocity, okay? So basically, you obtain this data, okay, for if you take from the common, you must give back anything. So basically, I think it's It's my part of view regarding this one.
Yes, Soledad.
Yep.
Yeah, I already intervened in this
Oh,
round.
yes, you already did. You already did. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. If there are any last observations and having no questions from the public, because you have made everything so clear to them, we are going to wrap it up. Unless any of you have a final thought, a 30-second pitch that you would like to leave us with. No pitch. Okay.
No.
Okay. That being said, on behalf of OdiseIA and in support of UNESCO's CSO and Academic Network on Artificial Intelligence, Ethics, and Policy, we thank you. This group, the IP and culture in this case, seeks to foreground the collective dimensions of the public domain and cultural data as critical developmental infrastructures and explore governance and policy proposals for safeguarding epistemic justice and fairer value sharing in AI driven economies. Thank you all very much for being here, and we will see you as well. This is going to be in OdiseIA's YouTube channel, of course, and you are all invited to visit odiseia.org, and we have the same name on YouTube as well. Thank you very much, everyone, and you can all say goodbye.
Bye.
Gracias.
Thank you. Bye.
Gracias.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye. Ciao.